Good morning. Hope that you have had a good start to the week and your Tuesday is getting off to a cracking start. Just to let everybody know, we're going to be recording this session and we'll be taking a couple of screenshots as we go. So let everybody know that that's going to be happening. I'm going to start off with a little introduction about who we are, the ReFrame group, before introducing Likky, who will be then leading the session. The ReFrame group. So I'm sure most of you have heard of us, and I see many familiar faces who've come to a couple of events before. But to give you a bit of background on who we are, we help people thrive today and protect tomorrow. As a certified B Corporation with 100% fee and commission transparency, we pride ourselves on being the antithesis of the classic insurance broker. Through strong human connection, our actions are directed by the intention of creating health, wealth, and wellness for the people in our community, as we strive to make their lives better, easier, and safer. As an insurance and financial services advisory, we co-create employee group benefits plans, group retirement and savings plans, financial planning and wealth management, as well as home and commercial insurance solutions through a values-aligned partner. And it is my pleasure to introduce today's speaker. He is known as the Blind Spot Navigator. Likky Lavji's passionate, candid nature engages audiences with his resonating message about leadership and organizational potential to power performance. As an executive business coach and keynote speaker, Likky has worked with leading organizations such as Lenovo Canada, RBC, Canadian Cancer Society, and the Vancouver Airport Authority, to name but a few. Businesses and executives have recognized Likky for his ability to break through personal and organizational barriers, the reframing of high-powered organizations, and for his innovative approach to leadership. Bob Burg, national best-selling author of The Go-Giver, refers to Likky as a transformational keynote speaker, teaching audiences a fresh new perspective on how to create your brand, customer loyalty, and profitable business. Be ready to be touched, moved, and inspired with a unique perspective on how to achieve greater outcomes. So without further ado, I give you Likky Lavji.
Thanks, David. And Antonia, thank you very much for organizing this. I really appreciate it. Thanks for the introduction, but I'm going to really simplify it. I call myself the BS Navigator. Now, BS could stand for whatever you think the S stands for, or blind spots. But literally, it's the BS Navigator that I bring vulnerability and grace to people. Now, imagine if I asked you right now to pick up your hands and put them over your eyes and start driving. Would you be able to do that? Most likely not. Would you be able to walk? Most likely not. But for some reason in our lives, we don't check our blind spots and we just keep on moving life the way it is. Blind spots are our perceptions. It's the actions and behaviors that impact the people around us. We don't even know how that impacts us. You know, right now it's an interesting time for us. There's lots going on in the world. We're dealing with a pandemic. Anybody here from the States today? Elle, I know you are. Kevin, you are. You've got some interesting things happening there today. And, you know, it'll be an interesting outcome. Whatever happens, happens. But I'm going to share a small story with you. About 7 years ago, I had sold my IT company, and I was sitting, literally, I was sitting at a beach, and I woke up depressed. I had no clue what was going on. Didn't know how to manage life. I called up my coach. I said, Conrad, I don't know what's going on here. And he goes, Likky, you've been helping people for so many years. You need to go out and start talking to people again. I go, okay. So I called up a good friend of mine, Bob Burg. He's written the book, The Go-Giver. I don't know if anybody's read that. I know, Antonia, you have. That book had impacted me for so many years. I'd given away a couple hundred books. So I reached out to him. I said, Bob, I need some help. He goes, why don't you become a speaker and a coach for us? I go, well, I can't really become a speaker. I have a stutter. And he goes, okay, well, come on down and be a coach. So I went from Mexico straight to Orlando and did a 3-day certification program with him. On the third day, he ran an exercise for me. Actually, there was 10 of us there. He ran exercise for all of us. And he goes, please stand up. So I stood up and he starts acknowledging me. I was touched. I thought he was being really nice. And then Kathy, his assistant, gets up and does the same thing. And then the next person, and the next person. By the fourth person, I am in tears. I'm just breaking right down. And Bob goes, what's going on? I go, I've never heard these words before. And he goes, I invite you to say you've never listened to these words before. Okay. The rest of the people went around the table and they finished it off. I felt a sense of relief for some reason. That night, I was on my flight back from Orlando to Dallas, sat next to a passenger, and for 2.5 hours, we had this incredible conversation without a stutter. Well, that's pretty cool. So I get to Dallas, and Kevin, you know how big Dallas Fort Worth Airport is. So I'm walking around being a crazy man, talking to strangers and saying, just talking and testing whether I had a stutter or not. And the stutter was gone. For 35 years, I was holding on to the stutter because when I landed in Canada, when I was 10 years old, my teacher had asked me to share my journey. And as soon as I got up in front of the class, a kid yelled out, go back to where you came from. And the kids started laughing. I was 10 years old at this point. But those words of go back to where you came from created Likky is not good enough. He doesn't belong here. That created the stutter life of Likky. Fast forward 35 years, the stutter goes away in one moment. What made me realize is everything that we're holding on to and what kind of blind spots we have, what the impacts that we have, we don't even know that they are. How that's affecting our lives at home, our lives in the workplace, our families and our friends. So I've taken it upon myself to help people find their BS. So let's have some fun. Who's ready to enjoy this journey today? Are you guys all awake? Yes. Hands up, reactions. Okay, so I just found something cool. Kevin, this is because of you. I'm going to test this and see if this really works.
My fault.
How's that? Can you guys see my blind spots? I'm going to be running the whole show with this today. No, I'm not. I want to introduce Joy. Joy is on the screen today. She makes things happen for me. Joy, thank you for controlling and setting all this up with David. I know there's a lot of work. So as we move forward, there's another gentleman here that's kind of important in this whole process. His name is Kevin McCarthy. And you see the blind spots logo in the back. So this assessment that I'm going to share shortly was originally created by Kevin. Him and I have partnered up together and launched a new company called Blind Spots Global. And we're excited to see that journey take off. But I want to acknowledge Kevin for being online, and he's going to help me out with some breakout rooms, hopefully. Everybody get that chat? Yes, perfect. So if you could take a couple of minutes, click on that, enter your email address, blah, 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 choose the assessment. There's two types of assessments. One is for the workplace and one is for a leader. Figure out what you are. And if you don't know what you are, just choose leader because we're all leaders here. We're leading at home, we're leading at work, we're leaders. So go ahead and choose that, finish the assessment. It should take us no more than 4 or 5 minutes. I invite you to take your video off right now. And as you finish the assessment, come back on again. You can go to mute as well. God, these people busy reading, trying to figure out their blind spots. It's funny, 14 questions and their entire life is on a piece of paper. Well done, Kevin.
Thank you. By the way, maybe I'll interject if you
yeah, please.
That blind spot assessment is based on the science of DISC. So some of you may have taken a DISC assessment at some point. It's been around for ages. And based on the feedback, which we get frequently from users of the assessment, it depending on the day, but it runs 86 to 92% accuracy rate. So some of you may feel like it nailed it, and some of you may feel like you're on the fringe, maybe not, maybe some of it, but should pretty much give you food for thought.
It's funny how, without me even knowing, Antonio's style, I kind of put him in a quadrant. And I'm going to share a screen with you right now to show you all different styles that there are. Can you guys see that? Just need a thumbs up from somebody saying, yeah, you can see it perfect. You know, you notice that there's a competitor, motivators, peacemakers, analyzers. These are your primary styles. And then the other styles are the secondary styles. So if you showed up as an energizer, you're a mixture between a motivator and a competitor. So like myself, who's a connector, I'm not really known as a peacemaker ever, but apparently I have some peacemaker traits and a motivator trait as well. So don't label yourself as just one if you're in the 4 lighter ones. You're a mixture of different ones. Now, when you start reading your own blind spots, you'll notice some things you can relate to and some things you won't. These are probable blind spots, not guaranteed. So, you know, by 14 questions, there's no way we can figure these out. The interesting part is, I'm going to stop. I love looking at people's faces. So I'm going to stop this, share. Here we go. The interesting stuff is that when I started coaching on blind spots, the only way I could work with people was one-on-one coaching over weeks of conversations to understand what their blind spots were. Because remember, we ourselves can't see them. We're blinded. We don't look for our own blind spots. We can't stand in the mirror and say, what is my blind spot? Oh yeah, I see this. You can't see that. Other people around you see them all the time. Last year, I was in New York for a course, and I asked a group of people, how do I show up when I walk into a room? Elle, I think you were there at that point. And I said, they actually laughed and said, you sure you want to know what the answer is? I go, yeah, I want to know. They go, well, you show up as a pompous blank when you walk in. I'm going, what? They go, well, hang on a second. Until you start speaking, then you're this kind, gentle, warming person. So, well, okay. So you mean when I first walk in, I look pompous? They go, yeah, because you don't smile. I go, well, I'm smiling. They go, no, you don't smile. You may think you're smiling, but you don't smile. And then you're dressed well, so you look like you want to own the room. But I never saw that. So I'd go into these networking events, and Antonio knows I love networking events. I'd go to these networking events all the time, and it would take about 15 minutes for people to come and start talking to me. And I'm like, this is kind of silly, but I'd be out there talking to people all the time. The moment I walked into a networking event smiling, all of a sudden people started talking to me. But I thought I was always smiling. Even looking in the mirror, I thought I was smiling. Talk about a big blind spot. So the blind spot assessment that you just received is probable. We want you to have a look at that. We're going to put you in a couple of breakout rooms right now. So you're all going to, I'm going to open up the breakout rooms. I'd like you to go to your own style. So if you're an energizer, go to the energizer breakout room. Discuss the 4 or 5 blind spots that show up on your report. Talk about 1 or 2 of them. See if you can relate to them. See if it makes sense. And find one that you were like totally shocked by. So the person with the lightest hair goes first in that group. And then the rest of you guys figure out. I'm just going to get it started off. Okay, you guys ready for breakout rooms? I'm going to give it, let's see, maybe about 7 minutes. Okay, and breakout rooms are open now. Oh, look, they're all coming in. They all look okay. Nobody's really upset yet.
Yes. Energizers are having too much fun. We didn't want to come back.
Yeah, we were busy energizing.
You're all energizers, and you know what? Okay, so who can guess which group came back first without even me sending a note saying that we're done?
The energizer.
No, energizers love to talk.
Yes, we do.
Who's
Connectors.
right on point? We're done. We're out of here.
The connectors?
No, the controllers.
Controllers.
Yeah, controllers and analyzers. They were done. They were like, they got to the point. They finished what they needed to do, and they're back in. Let's get on with this. Enough of this wasting time. And I walked into the connector room. They're just yapping away. How's it going? What are you guys up to? You know, and then the peacemakers were just really friendly. They weren't really dealing with anything. They're just talking really nice and calm. So I want to hear from some of you. What was your experience in there like? Just start talking. It's an open mic.
We found that incredibly, we had
a lot of the same traits in just our personalities. So I guess that is why we were all stabilizers. And reading through the report, I mean, we quickly downloaded the report and picked out a number of items to pinpoint on, and it's just shocked. Like, I should be shocked because I mean, obviously your assessment works, but we were so shocked as to how compatible we are in terms of just the things that we just the things that we are aware of, and what we like, what we don't like. One of the things for stabilizers is our less than stellar tolerance for mediocre performers, and expecting people to be perfect, and that's exactly who we are.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah, and I just want to add, it was nice meeting you, Likky, and thanks for arranging this for us. I really enjoyed doing this, and as you mentioned, this thing just came to my mind. Like, as controllers, like, they just talked and they left, and to the point. But we, being stabilizers, we introduced ourselves, we had a little chat, stabilized the moment there, and then we started talking about the report. And I just realized that how we slipped into it, and it's not just we jumped it. So definitely, I think that it is a very accurate report.
Good, good. And I'm glad you're able to sit down with your own style. I'd love to hear from other people as well. What other input was given, the other connectors and peacemakers? Who else wants to say motivators? All these quiet people.
I'll jump in if
Okay.
if I can for the motivators.
Yeah.
So yes, very accurate. I think generally the theme was that it was highly accurate in the initial, this is who you are and how you show up, but it was shockingly accurate, 110% accurate on the blind spots for all of us. So pretty interesting to see, I guess a bit of a difference, in the only real difference that I kind of picked up on, and please feel free to jump in for the rest of my team there, but kind of seeing how, we all kind of charge into these opportunities to speak and to motivate and lead and show our knowledge, I guess, or share our knowledge more specifically. And yet some of us were in this place of doing it out of fear almost. And I guess the analogy I used was the fear of being the only one standing against the wall in the corner of that networking event is much greater than being the person in the middle of the room and chatting and talking with people. And so you choose the lesser of two evils and get forced into it. And then there's this feeling of elation and kind of energy that comes, euphoria almost, that comes to you after taking on that challenge.
Great, thanks, Joel. I appreciate that. Wouldn't it be great to know what other styles or blind spots are, so you can communicate with them better? Now that you know your own blind spots, and it highlights it. You already knew some of these, but now it's just on a piece of paper, and you're just labeled. You're a motivator. You're a peacemaker. Again, there's nothing wrong with motivators, peacemakers, connectors. We're all the way we're supposed to be. This just highlights what the blind spots were. Now, communication. If I start thinking about connectors and controllers and peacemakers versus competitors, those are polar opposites in the blind spots. Imagine knowing how to communicate with your polar opposite and what they're looking for in that communication. I look at the analyzers, right? Analyzers as a connector are almost a polar opposite. I'm a big visionary. I just want to get going and just start talking about things. Imagine me going into an analyzer and just doing that. They'll be like, I need more details. Like, come on. So, I share a story about with my wife and I, when we used to wanting to go and travel, I would send her an email and say, let's go on holiday. That's all I would say. And literally in 24 hours, I would have a 30-page email about this holiday. And the analyzers are smiling and laughing right now, because that's exactly what happens, right? This huge email comes back to me with every single thing that we could possibly do. And all I want to know is where, how much, and when. But we couldn't communicate that way until we started talking like this. And now the email comes back. It's still 30 pages, but the first sentence is where, when, and how. So if I want to read the rest, I can, but it gets it out of her system, and vice versa. You know, I'm driving around and I'm just coming up with ideas. I just call her up and give her these ideas. She's like, "Oh my God, Likky, like, what are you thinking? Like, we can't do that." Now she knows I'm just throwing ideas out. Whatever sticks on the wall will stick on. I'm not committed to anything. I'm just throwing ideas out. But now that we know what our styles are, we can communicate a little bit better. Imagine in your workplaces what this could do for you. Just think about some of the conflicts that you may have had in your organization about not getting along or communication issues. If you were able to highlight what their blind spots were and you can communicate based on their blind spots, wouldn't that make life a lot easier? So in the chat window, I would love for all of you just to write one key blind spot that was highlighted for you, and we'll talk about them because I want everybody to know what other people's blind spots are. The next breakout room we're going to do is your polar opposites, and you'll choose which one to go into. But for now, if you can just in the chat window start writing out. Kevin, maybe can you help moderate some of that for me while I create these breakout rooms?
Sure.
Thanks.
So just copy and paste the one blind spot that stood out for you on your report. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, yeah.
Put it in the chat.
Please.
Yeah. So if everybody can do that, it'd be great. So Mike and Energizer, your self-confidence can easily be misconstrued as arrogance. That brings up a comment. We talked about this being in the Energizer room. So what this assessment does with 14 questions, it's complimentary. It takes 3 minutes, 4 minutes. It does not measure intensity levels like if you were to pay for a full-blown DISC assessment that's ASI validated and takes you 20 or 30 minutes, right? And so when you have motivator and competitor on the primary styles, and then you've got Energizer as a blend, some of those blind spots are going to be more intense than others, and you may not even recognize one or two of those blind spots because if, as an Energizer, for example, Mike, you made a comment about your confidence can be misconstrued as arrogance, and I've dealt with that, right? But that sort of says you're probably a little bit more on the competitor side from an intensity level than the motivator side, but you've got that blend, right? So for all of you, as you're thinking through this, realize that probably none of us are really one style. You know, we all generally tend to be a blend of styles, but what we've identified in this assessment is what might be referred to as your primary style, especially left unaware. Like if you're just meandering your way through life, this is probably who you are. The more aware you become, the more you can actually adapt and mold and work within the other areas. So thanks for sharing that, Mike. Antonio, competitor, fast-paced, risk-tolerant. You might sacrifice the quality of a project or never even finish the project before moving on to the next one. Got to get her done. Motivator, Joel.
There's other people in the team that you know are going to get the rest there. So you surround yourself with those others that are going to get it across the line and make sure that.
Yeah. You know, it brings, and if I've got another minute, Likky, it brings a story to mind. My father told me before I was born, he worked his way up into management and was in middle management, corporate America before he retired. But he was recruited by Honeywell many years ago, and he said his boss came up to him shortly after hiring him and said, "Jim, you're a brilliant guy, but your people skills are horrible." And so they sent him to a Dale Carnegie course, which teaches a lot of what we're talking about today. And he came back and here's the story he shared. To your point, Antonio, as a competitor, and as a leader, he would hand projects to some people on his team. He'd say, "Hey, I need this by this," and get it done, right? And he wouldn't give a lot of details. It would bullet points. It's fast. It's like, I've got things to do. I'm going to go. And he just expects people to do it. But one of the people on his team he was getting ready to fire was a peacemaker. Hell, I see a piece, Tony, right? So, and what he realized coming back and learning this information right here that we're talking about is that once you recognize the fact that that person was a peacemaker, he would spend more time with them, slow down the pace, have a real conversation, and just make sure that they were fully on board with all of the requirements of what he was looking for. And so instead of saying, "I need it by Friday at 5," he would say, "Hey, when do you think you can have this back to me? Friday by 5 would be awesome, but what do you think? That way you involve the piece, because peacemakers are steady pace, even keel, steady as they go. They want that collaboration more than just being bossed, and told what to do, right? Generally speaking. So that's what Likky's talking about here, this polar opposite thing. A competitor left unaware with a peacemaker left unaware are, I like to call it, you call them polar opposites, I like to call them natural arch enemies. Unaware, you will like not get along very well. So back to you, Likky. Thanks for sharing that, Antonio.
Thanks.
You still working that out, Likky?
No, go ahead. You're doing a great
no.
job. This is good. One of the things that I love to, Antonio, you talked about an ideal team. Yeah, if you can get somebody in each quadrant in your team, that's a perfect, well-balanced team. So I never say fire somebody to get somebody else in, but the next hire you do, let's make sure that trait or that style is in there, so you can start working through that. Because everybody needs the stabilizers and the peacemakers. We always have these, even if I look at the numbers right now, the people on the top quadrant, like the competitors and motivators, there's a lot more people. But without the stabilizers and peacemakers, we can't function. We need that in our organizations. We need the analyzers in our organizations. That's what helps us stay afloat. We can't all be energizers and competitors and connectors out there. An ideal team is a mixture of everybody in there.
And by the way, on that note, I'm looking at some of these comments. Al, you shared, thanks for doing that. You said, when you bottle up feelings, people see you as indifferent or insensitive. That is a peacemaker trait, right? Because peacemakers live for harmony. You just want everybody to get along. You want the team to be cohesive. You live for that. And so peacemakers don't wear their emotions on their sleeve. And that's why it's so important to learn these different styles, because you don't want to misjudge somebody. Yeah, and you want to be able to, especially with the peacemakers, you want to draw out from them the value that they bring to the table. So every style is a great style. We just need to learn how to really pull those strengths from each other and learn how to deal with our blind spots with each other.
Yeah, that was interesting one for me. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Anybody have any other questions around their blind spots or what you're seeing in the chat window that you'd want more clarification on? Does somebody in there really stand out in your team that you'd want to say, look, I can probably label that person as this type of a blind spot? Would you want to know more about that style? Think about the person in your organization or in your family or in your relationships that you're having a communication issue with, that you're just butting heads with all the time, or you're really getting along with. I find I get along with people in my hemisphere all the time really well. Really, really well. The energizers and connectors, we get along beautifully. But boy, you put a peacemaker and an analyzer in front of me, and if I don't realize who they are, they're like, yeah, this is not going to work. So just think about some of those things. Good. Now I'm going to put you guys in breakout rooms of, what did you call them? I call them polar opposites. What do you call them, Kevin?
Natural arch enemies.
Natural arch enemies. Yeah, no, they're polar opposites. I'm going to put them in there. So let's, and I think I figured out how to put you guys, you can choose your own. So I'm going to go recreate, let participants choose a room. So there's going to be 4 breakout rooms, and it's going to be energizer and stabilizers, motivators and analyzers, connectors and controllers, competitors and peacemakers. So go ahead and add yourself to the room that you think you belong to.
While you're doing that, Likky, somebody asked me in the session just now, they said, can you use this assessment, this complimentary assessment that you're providing everybody here in your hiring and selection process? It's like, absolutely.
I would say yes.
No doubt. Yeah, because if you have a team and you've got, think of just the 4 primary categories, not all 8, not the blends, but just the 4 primary. If you don't have any competitors on your team, for example, then it's not well balanced. You don't need to have the same number of each style, but you want to have different perspectives. So if you had two equally qualified candidates and you gave them an assessment like this, and one was competitor and the other one was say another motivator, and you got plenty of motivators, then that might tip the scale. You might think, okay, you know what, equally viable candidates, the competitor, we need somebody with that perspective, that style.
Yeah, and so, I mean, as HR professional, we actually have a version of this available for you as well. So we can chat about that when you're ready for that. But, you know, I find anytime I'm dealing with customers, clients, family members, even potential hires for my clients, we run through this. We run through this assessment, and it just creates a conversation piece. We don't base a hire or fire on it, but it's just a conversation piece to understand where they're at, what we need to do, what the communication will look like moving forward. You know, this does the same thing, but this just really highlights it so easily. Okay, I want to hear from some of you about your opposites. Let's open this mic up. I want to hear what you learned. I know there's some good conversations in the competitor group for sure, and the peacemaker group as well. So let's open this up. Now they're all going to be quiet and shy. So
Eva here, I can go.
yes.
I think we've learned that the competitors like move very quickly, and that we need to give more detail and more space for our ideas, and have more patience.
But I also found out that competitors are really open to being challenged on their thoughts. It's not that at all. So that's okay.
Good.
Great observation.
They're thinking, and Ava said something that was really huge for me. And that was about revisiting things, because I was feeling once we've made a decision, we've gone through it, we've decided, I don't want to revisit it again. A competitor could come the next day and be like, well, let's take a look at that again. Well, I'll be like, oh. But for her, it just felt like a pivot, because she hadn't gone through that whole long analysis that had happened. And so that was huge. Now I understand why that was so easy when it felt to me like this, oh, we finally got there. That she hadn't had that feeling at all. I'm just saying she because Ava gave that comment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thanks, Ella. I appreciate that.
Thanks, Ava.
That's a good find. That's a good find. How about in the analyzer motivator groups? What came up for you guys? Stop analyzing it. Joel, what came up for you in that group? Jody?
I unfortunately had a call to take during our session. I'll let one of the other teammates.
No worries. No worries. Jody?
Yeah, so we were we had a kind of a dominance of motivators in our group, and then we just had two great analyzers. And yeah, one of the questions was, they did a great job of just saying kind of some of the highlights, but I asked the question, I mean, how do we need to communicate better with you? Before you ask the question. So
what was the answer?
Yeah, to ask more questions, give us the details, like how do you get there, the actual steps, and they want like the smaller picture within the bigger picture, which can be that can be challenging, but that, they want both. We come with the idea and the enthusiasm and the vision or whatever, but they want both. And so yeah, and the other thing they said, we may not be, just to switch it a little bit, we may not be 100% right. So just that kind of, openness, to step back, to think that not everyone thinks the way we do.
Good, thank you. Cheryl, do you have any input on the analyzer side?
No, that's exactly it. It was what Jody said there, is that motivators come and bring big picture, and as an analyzer, we want the smaller details. So it's kind of recognizing on both sides that maybe they're not going to come with all of the details, and we need to be accepting of that and sort of recognize that we can ask questions, or we can sort of just let it go a little bit. That's hard for us, but trying to acknowledge that a little bit.
Yeah, so Cheryl, as an analyzer, do you like impromptu meetings?
Do I? I do them a lot. So do I like them? I would say I don't mind them.
Yeah, so it's interesting. Most analyzers will take an impromptu meeting, but they want a lot of detail before they even start. Tell me what it's about, what we need to plan so we can figure it out, as opposed to just throwing stuff at the wall.
Yes. Yep. Yeah, so that's my instant reaction. If someone usually brings something to me, my reaction is to ask questions.
Yeah, perfect. Perfect.
Yes.
Perfect. And I know the connectors and controllers. I mean, you know, unfortunately, we had one controller there that was being ganged up on. So I'd love to hear from you guys what you guys found out.
I would say our controllers have a personality. Like that was my one question. Do they like being chit chat too? Why can't I disarm them with a smile? But I think, you know, in the communication style is just being very precise and really what you want, because, you know, they really like kind of getting things done and accomplished, and that's really what kind of motivates them. So I found that really interesting. And then just interesting on the connector side, probably the reason why I can't get stuff done is because people are asking me, and I said, you know, I need, maybe give me a timeline, because I think everything's urgent. So I drop all my work in order to please other people. So I thought that was interesting. So I actually appreciate now the controller side, where you guys actually have a hard line and you don't respond to my stuff right away. Where before I found it kind of annoying and unfair. So yeah. It was very valuable.
That's a great find, and that's a huge one, because now you can appreciate and acknowledge them for what they go through, right, and what they need. That's wonderful. What about the energizers and stabilizers, Mike?
Yeah, like one of the things we talked about was as energizers, there's a tendency to want to speak first, dominate, etc. So when we're in communication and knowing there's other personalities in the room, especially our opposites there, perhaps allowing them to go first and draw them out, I think is how you put it, Kevin, and then dominate the conversation after.
That's great.
I think I said that.
Kevin, I want to get you to do those 2 questions in just a second, okay? I want to put a screen share up, and I want to read a quote. And this one really resonated to me after I started looking at this blind spot. So let me just share the screen, and then just a heads up. Kevin, can you see the screen?
Yep.
The quote? Okay, perfect. I'm not who you think I am. I'm not who I think I am. I am who I think you think I am. That's by Thomas Cooley. I'm going to read that once more. I am not who you think I am. I'm not who I think I am. I am who I think you think I am. Imagine what other people's perceptions of you are is what you start becoming for that person. And once we start putting that aside and having communications and realizing what they could possibly be thinking about you and what possible blind spots are, you can just hit this head on and just have conversations around it. You know, I'm sure right now you can sit back and think about some instances in your life where this actually happened to you. You started becoming the person that you thought the other person wanted you to become. And they start labeling you without you even having a chance to have a conversation about this. So this tool will help you get through that. So Kevin, I think your 2 questions right now would be ideal to be able to share how we can categorize people. I hate labeling people, but this is what it's about. Let's talk about that for a second.
Do me a favor, stall for 1 more minute. I'm going to pull up the slide if you'll give me permission to share a slide.
Okay, stall. That's not a good way of stalling. Okay, so I'm going to put somebody on the spot. I'm going to put David on the spot. David, the peacemaker, and Antonia, the competitor. What did you guys find out about each other right now?
Oh, they work together.
With the
David, you want to go first?
No, I think you should.
I think because we work so well together, David just understands me and where I'm coming from. And I know that he's really thinking about everyone around him and cares about everyone around him. And I think deep down, David knows that I care about everyone. And I just choose sometimes to move forward because I want to move forward quickly. And it's not that I really want people to get hurt. I just know that a little bit of bumps here and there are build character. And so I'm okay with that because I know the outcome of moving a little quicker is more positive benefit for everyone from my point of view.
Yeah, yeah, that's perfect. And David, as a peacemaker, what do you have to say about that?
No, we know you all care, Antonio. So from my side, we actually had this, Eva asked us this question in our breakout room. And I addressed it first. And I was saying when I first started working for Antonio, I got a little bit overwhelmed by the amount of projects that were thrown my way. And then over time, I realized that a lot of them were ideas being thrown against the wall, as you keep saying, and selecting them and moving forward wasn't a problem. I was just thinking, I have to do all of these things. And Monday would come and I'd have 20 emails and each one would be a different idea from Antonio. And I'd be like, oh my gosh. But I learned pretty quickly that that's not the thought process he's having. They're just ideas.
Yeah.
Put them in a folder and revisit them later.
Yeah. Who else can relate to a team member who does the same thing, or a boss who does the same thing? Yeah, we all have. I'm like that as well. And it's funny how, we're just thinking it's the best thing in the world. Like, come up with all these ideas and let's make a move on, and we'll grow the company. We'll do this. We'll do that. Yeah, but the peacemakers are like, whoa. Like, we're just going to roll it up and give me more details and slow it down. But we're not, I don't want to just do it all. I just want to get it out of my head so somebody else can deal with it all. Right, Antonio? That's why we hire the right people.
Definitely. Yeah. I know that those skill sets for me just don't enable me to move as fast as I need to move.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And especially in today's economic climate, I feel that the future belongs to those who are fast. When you're small and nimble, that's our advantage.
That's perfect. Thank you. Kevin, are you ready?
Yeah, Likky, go ahead and give me screen share permission. I'll bring up a slide or two on the screen.
There you go.
Okay. All right, everybody see that? On your screen, you see fast-paced and direct, right? So this is a two-question process where you can identify quickly the primary style of your colleagues, your family, your friends. How many have teenagers at home? Raise your hand. Let's have a moment of silence. Seriously, if you can figure, we're going to focus just on the 4 quadrants, because if you can figure out whether somebody's a competitor or a motivator, a peacemaker, or an analyzer, that'll get you into close proximity. And whether they're a blend or not doesn't matter at this stage. It just gives you the idea, okay, I'm dealing with this, potentially this style of person. So you can do it with 2 quick questions. First thing you want to ask yourself, now think about somebody at work, you right now, you want to know, yeah, I'd like to know what their style is. I wish I could have them fill out the assessment, but not make it a big deal, right? And you can actually do that in a teamwork process, but think about that person and then answer this question based on what you think about that person. Would you say that they're a more fast-paced, more direct kind of a person, or they're a little bit slower paced, a little bit more indirect kind of a person? Okay. So what we're dealing with here is the pace, and the priority is what we're going to look at. So answer that question, and that puts them into one of the 2 hemispheres. Based on your answer, you already know they're either a motivator or a competitor, or they're either a peacemaker or an analyzer. Next question you're going to then ask is, are they guarded and a little bit more task-oriented kind of person, or are they open, more people-oriented kind of person? Are they cold, a little colder, a little warmer, you know, which side of that fence would you say that they're on? Keeping that first answer, where are they at now in the second answer? And based on that, based on your analysis there, you should find that they're in one of the 4 quadrants. So they're going to be either in the competitor quadrant, guarded, task-oriented, fast-paced, direct kind of a person, get her done, move it fast, or they're open, people-oriented, and still fast-paced and direct. So they're a motivator. And again, if they're an energizer, they're right in the middle of those 2 anyway. So you're not likely to get it wrong. Make sense? And I showed you on the screen here, just based on, there's 3 major DISC aggregators in the country for all the sub-assessments that are out there. And based on the 3rd largest, where, you know, the company that I deal with, this is their data. So 38% of the population of tens of thousands, probably hundreds of thousands of assessments make up the motivators, 32% peacemakers, 13% analyzers, 17% competitors. That could also be a good gauge for you if you're trying to figure out what your team dynamics are. So again, ask those 2 questions, go through a mental exercise, make a list of all the people that you work with and interact with, and then maybe do your best guess and say, okay, you know what, now I get it. Oh, I'm a peacemaker, now I understand. Well, she's a competitor, and we just rub each other sometimes because one of us is, or both of us sometimes aren't fully aware in the moment. Okay.
Okay, so I'm going to start taking this down to a different path of shutting. You know, we're going to wrap up fairly soon, but I want to get you into the breakout rooms for another less than 5 minutes, and you're going to go with the exact same breakout rooms you were in before, which is the polar opposites or the arch enemies, however you want to say it. But here, what we're going to do now is we're going to acknowledge the person that's the opposite of us for their traits. Acknowledge them for who they are as people. Acknowledge them for what they stand for. Acknowledge them and appreciate them on what they've had to deal with without knowing your style. How's that sound? All right, so we're going to do that right now, and I'll give you about 5 minutes.
Or the first group back.
I almost feel like we just went through like a cleansing, you know. We've had a major argument, and now we've cleaned the slate and we've moved on.
Wouldn't life be just perfect if we were able to do that all the time and acknowledge people and appreciate people all the time like that?
We should do it more, I guess.
Yeah, we don't, and that's the part that I think we're starting to realize that's important more than anything else. Well, welcome back. I don't see any major black eyes or bruises or egos hurt. I'm assuming that all went well.
Mm-hmm.
What showed up for some of you when that happened, especially on the receiving end? A lot of appreciation and love between the competitors and peacemakers. Love that. And what showed up? What were some of the feelings that were going through your mind and sensations as you were getting the acknowledgement and appreciation?
Eva here. I felt like a lot of the qualities that I always thought people saw as negatives, like, oh, here she comes again with this, right? Like that they actually see it as maybe a good challenge. And that we need each other, right? Like we're only successful in that balance. If we're left alone with our own mix of qualities, we wouldn't be successful.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. You know, if you just think about being able to do this with your teams and appreciating, acknowledging who else is in your team and what their styles are, that'll just make your lives a lot easier. So, you know, go ahead and just take the assessment for your teams. More than happy to. Just welcome them and learn what the other styles are. It'll make your environment a lot easier to work in. Give it to your partner.
If you're daring.
I say that really smirkly because I know that could create, but just have some fun with it. Give it to your kids. It's funny, my kids didn't take it for a few weeks until they saw some shifts in my way of being, because I pegged them right away where they were, and so I started communicating with them based on what I thought their styles were, and then they started taking it. So Gandhi says, "Be the change." Well, if you don't think your partner wants to take it yet, just be the change, and they'll take it by themselves. But it really makes a big difference. Any other comments about what your thoughts were in that room?
I think one thing that kind of came up in our group, so we're the analyzer motivators, was that in taking that acknowledgement, the analyzers aren't actually that good at taking compliments. So bringing in feedback, and likewise not that great at kind of handing out compliments. So it's something to be definitely aware of, to be more accepting of them and to give them more.
Yeah, I know, like Tiffany, you've got 4 people here from your group. Take this, have a session with the 4 of you and talk more about it. And if you have more people in your team, get them to take the assessment, sit down and actually have a conversation and really understand what the other styles are, because it makes life a lot easier when you can communicate like this and just create that openness and create that, hey, look what we just came up with, look what we shared. End with that gratitude, because I'll tell you, the lack of appreciation is so big right now. We're just not doing enough of it. And when we start appreciating the other person's traits, and because remember that quote I said, they think who we think they are. So if we can appreciate them for who they stand for, what they are, it'll make their days and lives better as well. And that's what we're here to do, right? We're here to make everybody else's lives better. That's our job. So on that note, I want to say thank you. I'm grateful for all of you sitting with us for 2 hours and going through this. I hope you learned something. It's been my utmost pleasure to work with you. So thank you. And this is, it's a new beginning for all of us. Now we know our styles. And Tony, I'll pass this off to you.
Thanks, Likky. Thanks so much for taking the time here today. And thank you everyone for joining us and sharing. And I know that this has been extremely insightful for me to just, I've taken DISC, Insights, like probably about 10 different strengths finder, and a number of them. And I feel like each time you take a different assessment, you learn something new, and it brings stuff to the forefront that, I can go to my office today and connect with people and really think about them and share this with others. And thank you, Likky, for sharing this with us. And I think this has been invaluable for everyone here. And if there's anything we can do for you, let us know.
Welcome. Thank you. And again, take the test, read it, pass around, make it work for you. Do whatever it needs. If you want it for your teams, reach out to me and we'll help you out with this. All right.
Just to add to that, Likky, sorry, everyone, I'll be sending out a follow-up email to all the attendees with a recording of the session as well as contact details for Likky.
Excellent.
Great.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Hey, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks. Great week.
Thank you.